So, being Christian means easier life, right? Not necessarily. So let's talk about it. Life can sometimes be a roller coaster, and we get it.
So tune into The Walk, where we'll explore the modern-day Christian journey by addressing challenging questions and trending topics faced by young adults today. No topic is off limits.
Well, it is Friday, and it's not just an ordinary Friday, it's a Walk Friday. It's a third Friday, so we are live here at The Walk, and we are so glad that you are joining us today. So you know how we do. We're going to invite you to start inviting your friends and family to join us. We have a really good show for you today that I know you're not going to want to miss. We always have a good discussion. We like interacting with you. So let's go ahead. Let's bring the family on in the chat room right now on YouTube. I said chat room. That's such a throwback type of term. Bring us, come into the comments with us so we're not just talking amongst ourselves. YouTube, Facebook, at The Walk Live, or MT Zion SDA on those channels as well. But we want to welcome you to The Walk. My name is Shane. We have
Andre.
All right, and
Luella.
All righty. So we have a trio here that is ready to discuss. And like I said, even the hot topic is good this week. Yeah. So I'm so excited to talk about it. But let's kick things off in the comments. Let us know that you're there. Tell us something. I see a wave from Naomi. So put your hands up, put something saying hi, or just give us a little something to let us know that you're here with us. And while you're doing that, let's start talking about our week. How's our week been?
It's actually been not that bad of a week. I think it went pretty quickly, so we like that. Overall, I can't really complain. Okay, I can't complain. Yeah.
How about you?
Can't complain either.
Can't complain.
But it's been a week.
It's been a week. It's been a week. It's been a week. It's been a week. I always have problems trying to remember what happens.
Right.
Even yesterday.
No, I guess.
So I'm like 7 days I'm responsible for with this question. But honestly, I think whenever you don't have anything significant that sticks out in your head, I think that's okay. That's okay. I'm definitely okay with that. So I think it's just been a smooth week. I worked all week, and something about Fridays just comes up, and I'm more than happy that it's Friday. So how about y'all in the comments? How's the week been? Anybody's week been good? I know, Naomi, you had a little bit of a week. So the fact that you're watching right now, that's really cool that you are doing okay. Again, let us know. We would like to interact with you. And while you're doing that, we're going to go ahead and kick things off with prayer. That's the way that we do things here, right? So, dear Jesus, we just want to thank you so much for bringing us together at the end of the week. We might have had some really crazy weeks. We might have had a really good week, but no matter what it is, you've been there for us, and we just want to say thank you. So as we go into this show, I pray you be in the midst of our discussion. May it be life-changing and thought-provoking. So at the end of the day, that we can just get closer to you. In Jesus' name we pray, amen.
Amen.
All right.
Now, Shane, I will say this. It came back to mind again. My week has been pretty good, right? But anytime we have an episode of The Walk coming up, like Friday, it's always not as smooth as it should go. So literally, I had to call Shane on my way here, and I was like, Shane, I got an interesting question. Do we have a outlet outside at the church? Because for some reason my car didn't charge one of the days this week, and I wasn't home, so I was doing a lot of driving, and then I'm coming here, and before going home, so my car was at like 5% when I got here, and I was like, well, I think I can get home on that. But it's just like always something like this has never happened. Never need like a charger anywhere other than my house. But of course, it would be today coming to do the walk. That's like, no, we're gonna make this a little bit little bit challenging for you, you know. But thankfully, there is a charger here, so I'm all good.
You're all good. It's the little things. It's the little things. Yeah, that's definitely a good one. I'm trying to think. Honestly, Wednesday, I was even telling one of my coworkers about it this week. Wednesday, one of my coworkers told me just randomly, she's like, "You have a knack for organization." And I'm like,
You didn't believe it?
And I've heard it twice in 1 week, and I'm just like, I guess, because you might ask my mom, she might say something different.
Well,
she looks at my room and she's just like, organized? I don't think so. But yeah, I do. I guess that's something of a gift, I guess. With certain things, I am organized. And even in the midst of mess, I can still be organized and find my way through things. And so this week was that a little bit. And I think in the midst of what other people would get either intimidated by or it just seems like a lot, like I'm able to kind of just smoothly go through. So getting that as confirmation and being able to do that and give hope and peace to people in the midst of that it's a testimony for sure.
I appreciate that. And I said that it was a week, but you said that I could be free.
Yeah,
like, I can say what I want to say.
Yeah.
I can open it up.
Yeah, open it up.
Okay, so the thing is that some people know, a lot of people on Facebook know what my journey is. I look tired and exhausted because I am. The thing is that on May 1st, just tragedy happened in my life. Not just my life, but our family. And so my husband, he went to work. And according to doctors, he shouldn't have made it home. He didn't make it home, but he shouldn't have survived, according to the doctors. And so now, thank God, because we know that God's not through with him yet. And he's in rehab. So I just praise God for that. So this week was a challenge. It was a week, because I returned back to work. After not being at work for 2 weeks, handling his care at the hospital. He was in ICU for 2 weeks.
Man, wow.
And so, things are moving and he's improving and he's doing well.
Good.
So when I used to say, should I complain? It's like, what is there to complain about?
Right, yeah.
Reality check, right?
Yeah.
You start to put things in perspective.
There you go.
Yeah, I get that.
I wish reality didn't have to be like that.
Yeah.
It's just like, man, but yeah, well, I'm so glad to hear about the recovery. When I saw the post, it's just so crazy because I know even up to my dad had seen him just 2 days prior.
2 days.
And seeming like perfectly fine. And then for something like that to happen, it's just shows how delicate life is for sure.
For sure.
Yeah.
That's right.
Go ahead.
Oh, no, go ahead. Comments.
Yeah, so Rodney says long week, but I'm asking for prayer for a church family member asking for healing. And yeah, definitely we can keep that in mind. So our prayer warriors, everybody that prays, keep this member in mind. My week, spiritual warfare has increased as I fall deeper in love with Christ and walk into my purpose. I hope you all had an amazing week. That's a very good comment. And I don't know if you always watch the show, but we were talking about, was it a month or 2 months ago, about suffering? And it's this idea of, was it last month?
Yeah.
The idea that, once you come to Christ, things get better or easier. I can't say that anybody's outright said that's what's happened, but I think based off of the sermons you've heard about your life without Christ and what a life with Christ looks like, I think previously we would hear you and you would assume that life would get better and sweeter as the days go by with Christ. And I think what we often find out is that the sweetness that we were looking for isn't quite it. So I could definitely, Stephanie, see what you're talking about. And if you haven't watched that show, definitely check it out because we we talked about that topic exactly
Yeah,
because that's a reality for a lot of people.
Funny enough, Rodney just commented. He said something in Sabbath school, like when I was growing up, and I have never forgot it. And I think about it a lot when it comes to things when I see like I'm being attacked or like the devil's attacking other people. And he said like you have to see the devil when he's coming. And I'm like, so I start to think of things from the devil's perspective. And yeah, if the devil is seeing that you're getting closer to God, like he's like, oh no, hold on a second. No. So wait, I clearly haven't been doing my job right. I got to throw some wrenches your way, you know? But it helps to see him coming, you know? So like, as you get closer to God, you can almost like expect, all right, so like, what's the devil going to try to do, you know? And then when it happens, you're like, well, we knew something was going to happen. Like I knew it couldn't all be like sunshine and roses, you know? Something had to happen. And then it's not going to feel good, but at least you can know, okay, I saw that something was going to happen. And like I've been getting closer to God. I know He's gonna get me through this. Like it's not gonna be like this always. You know?
Yeah.
So definitely hold on. Like it's not gonna always be like this.
No, that's definitely good encouragement. Yeah. The only way you can see the other side is by staying in it.
Exactly.
Yeah. So that's definitely something to keep in mind. But at least we have some testimonies to share. This week, like I said, we have a really good hot topic. So we're going into, so tell me how. And Andre has it this week. So we want you guys' opinion on this, all right?
Right. So let me give a little background. This topic comes from me actually watching the show, Love is Blind. Some of you might have heard of it. The basic premise of this show is that they have a bunch of single men, a bunch of single women. They're not allowed to see each other, but they're all dating each other. And the only way you get to see the person you're dating is if you decide that you're going to propose to this person. So the whole idea is that, you know, love is blind. You can propose to them without ever seeing them. Once you propose, then you get to see who you propose to. And everyone who gets engaged, they take them on this little vacation for like a week. Then after that week, they go back to their real lives and they're preparing for their wedding and all that stuff, right? So now in this show, one of the couples, it became quite apparent that the guy was more into the girl than she was into him. It was quite apparent. And so throughout all the stuff that's happening, it gets to the point where she actually decides that she wants to break the engagement and she wants to date someone else from the show, right? And so they're having this conversation where they're essentially splitting up. And he's like, okay, you know, it is what it is. I just want my ring back. And she says, no, it was a gift, and I deserve to keep it. And that threw me for a loop. I was like, wait, that's a thing. It's a gift. So you're gonna leave me for someone else, and then you're gonna keep what do you need it for? It'd be one thing if you're just leaving me,
right?
All right, but you're leaving me for someone else. Are you gonna engage to him with this? I just don't understand. I don't understand at all. So literally when I saw it, I was like, nope, I gotta bring this on the walk because I need to know people's opinions on this. I can't be the crazy one. I have to know what people think. And I know, Shane, you did a poll on Instagram about this. So I'm curious to see like what results did you get? What were people voting there?
So embarrassingly enough, I did the poll wrong.
What?
So,
one job.
So I had one job and I did feel very bad because I noticed, I'm like, man, I'm not seeing any results. And I think Gavin's the one that messaged me. And I was like, he was talking to me about it. I was like, why did you vote? And he's like, I can't. And I was like, what do you mean you can't? And that's when I found out I did it wrong. With that, I really don't have a percentage like last time. But what I did do is I asked some people, you know, what are their thoughts on this? Mm-hmm. And I will say the room has been split.
Really?
Yeah. Oh, the room has been split. And so I'll start with mine, right? So I think if the wedding doesn't go through, period, mm-hmm. the ring should be given back.
Okay.
You know, I'm just more or less, I don't know under what circumstances Like, we've seen even when you found out the person you're about to be engaged to, I don't know, like did something horrible to you. And you've seen where they've thrown the ring, right?
Right.
In almost all instances, you give the ring back, even when you're angry with the person, right? So I'm thinking, there's no sentimental value to this for you all. Maybe there is, but like, are you just keeping it like, oh, I remember that time when someone loved me and I didn't love them back? Or, what are you keeping the ring for? Some people I asked said they pawn it and it's a gift. It's a gift. So at that point, they would pawn it and take the money. But I was like, then someone else on Facebook told me it wouldn't hold up in court because it's almost like the ring is
it's a
like
symbol,
promise of intent for something. So if you don't go through with that, she was saying to me that the judge would actually order for you to give it back. I'm like, that's interesting. She's like, I watched enough court TV to know this. So, it was really very much split. And then people started giving me examples of like, okay, so what if, in some relationships you buy a car for someone? What do you do in that instance? And I'm like, well, does it depend on if you have payments or not, because
I'm like, yeah, the payments aren't, I'm not going to keep paying for your car.
Right.
Ain't no way.
But if you paid for a $25,000 car for this person.
Like cash?
Yeah, like it's done.
Okay.
It's done paying for. They break up with you. Do they need to give you the car back?
See, that one, how do I say that? Give me the keys. I want my car. Like, no, that one I truly did give to you as a gift. It didn't really symbolize anything. It was just, I really wanted to give you this gift of a car. Now, that's a big old gift.
Go ahead and say someone that gives you a car doesn't think a breakup's an option.
I would hope so. I would hope so.
But what do you think about the ring situation?
Oh, give it back.
Oh, give it back.
Give the poor man his ring back. Give it back. Yeah. Give him his ring back.
That's interesting.
Because I'm like, if you keep that, I feel like I'm going to show up in your new relationship. I'm just see you out with your new boo. Jessica, did she tell you she still has my ring? She still thinks about me. And then I'm going to walk away. That's all I'm going to say. I'm going to walk away. And you're going to have to deal with that.
Oh, my goodness. So some of the comments in here say, she said it's a gift and I accepted it. Honestly, if she had any morals, she would have returned the ring out of respect. Especially if you break up.
Yes.
And on top of that, you go to the competition on the same. Like, he knows who you went to.
Exactly.
Like, that's insane. Stephanie said it's one thing you crush the person's heart, give it back so he can refund it. Yeah. Alegna says give it back. What are you going to do with it when you keep it? And Sister Anderson gave us a testimony and a prayer request. So, I mean, it's hard. I think more people than not agree with giving it back. So I took it up a notch at work when I was asking people questions like this. And so I was like, okay, let's say you get the ring back. Is it
propose to someone else with it?
Oh boy.
You should have a friend like this that can complete your sentences.
Hold on a second.
Can you use this same ring to propose? I don't want to say to the next person.
Okay.
But
here's my answer.
Tell us in the comments.
If you bought the ring, I don't think so. I really don't. It sucks. That's money down the drain. At that point, you got to pawn it. I don't know. I don't think you can propose to someone else. But if it's like a family heirloom or something, or like, your mother or something gave you, then yeah, I mean, like, it's just like, well, this ring dies here now. Like, no, come on. Like, I can use this again. That's how I feel.
So to me, I'm like, what's the difference?
What?
I mean, okay.
Because it's like something that's like passed down in your family. You can't just let it stop because you made a mistake.
But it's still a ring that you gave to someone else, and because of whatever happened, they gave it back.
I get that, but I guess it's just like, I'm hoping that the person, let's say that happens to me, right? I'm hoping that if I give this ring to someone else, that they'll be able to see the bigger thing here. It's not that, you know, let's not focus on I give it to someone else. It's still like this is like a big part of something I've always wanted to continue this tradition of handing this down through the generations, you know? And I regret the mistake I made deeply. But I can't do anything about it now, and I still want this to continue, you know? It's still
So would you want the ring back? Whether it's a family heirloom
I
or
want the ring back.
you want the ring back.
Absolutely.
What if she doesn't give it back to you?
Woo!
What length would you go?
Yeah, I'm not going too hard of a length. I would fight more than the guy on the show did. I'll tell you that much, because she literally the conversation went, "I want the ring back." She said, "No, it's a gift, and I feel I should keep it." He said, "Fine. I hope you look at it and remember what we had." And then he left. I was like, "That's it, sir. That's
TV.
it." I was like, "Nah, I'm fighting a little harder than that." We gonna have to talk this out at least. It's gotta be some back and forth, you know.
I'll say I did tell him at work to help with that heirloom versus not.
Mm-hmm.
Whoever I gave it to, ultimately, I'm like, you won. What's the problem? Right? Like, even if I gave this to someone else first, ultimately, you're the one that won.
Yeah.
You are the final person I intend to give this to.
Now,
I really spun
it's not enough. I will say that. It's not enough. Funny enough, in this same season of the show, there was one of those things where this guy proposed to someone, and you know, them two went away on that vacation thing, and then afterward, actually, they didn't even make it through the vacation thing. They split up in the vacation. And when he got back to reality, he was like, "I'm going to look up the other person that I had a connection with, never got to see," and then they eventually got engaged. Now, I don't think he used the same ring. That would be kind of crazy. But it was one of their struggles as you saw that couple, like, you could tell the girl still felt like a little insecure about that. Like, you were between me and this other girl, and you chose this other, you proposed to her, and now you're with me. And it's like, okay, yes, I did get you. Great, cool. But that's still, it's like a dagger, you know? Like, I hear you, but it's like, it's just not enough,
It's just
you know?
not enough. Okay. Maddie says, if you would know what's good for you, I would say no. And also, I agree with Andre. Brenda Hunt says, why not? You bought the ring. It's yours to give to whomever. Okay. If it's an heirloom, definitely give it back. Stephanie says that's a double no. Maybe if it's a family sentimental, but even if, give it to your brother to give to his future wife. Lee says, and who knows, that person can be way better than the last person, you know, really, right? Oh, no, I don't want someone else's ring. No, no, sir, Alegna says. Vera says, getting another, or reusing the ring is like reusing the wedding dress.
For the woman? Like if she...
So I'm trying to think, okay, so if there's a wedding, yeah, when would you reuse her wedding dress?
Like if in a second marriage?
If you got a second marriage. Yeah. So you're expected to get a new dress?
I feel like you would want to.
Why would you spend that type of money again?
Listen,
would you?
Listen, women love to shop, all right?
Reuse the dress?
Okay, the way you said that.
Reuse the dress.
Listen, they won't even reuse a prom dress, all right? So there's no problem there.
Exactly.
Wants to get another dress anyways.
But there's no reason really not to. This is just all in our heads.
I mean, I don't know that guys would necessarily care that you reuse the dress. I don't think I would.
Mm-hmm. Really?
I don't think so. It's a piece of cloth that you're going to wear one time.
Oh, no.
We're never going to see it again. Yeah, I don't think
I don't know. Some final comments on this. Alegna says, I don't want anyone else's ring. Yeah, so Naomi, definitely not. The ring should match the person you're proposing to. Danielle says, I don't want it. Yes, Shane, you need to get a new dress. So, well. Let's just say I hope this doesn't happen to any of us in here, so we don't have to go through any of these these options. So we're gonna actually transition into our topic because we did talk through testimonies a little bit, unless you guys had a specific thing. But we're gonna go into the topic, and today we are talking about where's my blessing. So is this our second or a third? Where the whole truth?
Second.
The second, right? So we started this segment with the idea of there's certain things that we have in Christianity where it's a little foggy on what the standard is, what the actual belief is, and if it's biblical. And so the first thing we talked about was suffering. And this week we're talking about the topic of where's my blessing? And it stemmed from a video that Andre actually found on Instagram, and I think you might be the best person to kind of give a synopsis of what this video is.
So I wish we could show you guys this video because there was so much that she said in the video. There's a lot to unpack. So some of the highlights were the video starts and it's just this girl talking. She's like, I found out that I was manipulating God's hand, or God told me I was manipulating his hand. That's how she starts it. And she was saying that she was in a season where she was, praying for certain things and she was feeling like she's not getting anything. And she was looking at other people whose prayers were getting answered and they were being blessed. And she's like, well, God, like, how long have I been praying for these same things? And like, why isn't it happening to me? And she started to think like, is it because I'm making this mistake or because I'm not doing this or that? And she said that God responded to her and was like, the fact that you're thinking like that is the whole problem. He's like, you need a mindset change, like a heart posture change, because you're thinking that I bless you because of the things that you do or because of like who you are. He's like, you forget that like I'm your father. I just want to bless you because you're my child. And he's like, if I did answer your prayer and like give you these blessings because, oh, you're doing the right thing, then you would be trying to manipulate my hand. You would just do things to get the blessing, He's like, I don't want to validate that thought process. So he's like, I've actually been withholding until you get the right mind frame. Then I can just bless you how I want to. And she's like, I had to get that heart posture change or that mindset change for me to actually receive what God wanted to give me. I was like, wow, that's very profound. Like, I feel like a lot of us probably do that. Like that thought she had, especially where she was like, I see other people getting blessings. Like, where's mine? Like, I've been asking for this. Like, I've been asking for a new job, for a new car. Like, how come I can't get it? Am I just doing something wrong? And that's like immediately where you go, because that's how we're conditioned. We're conditioned. You do the right thing, get a treat.
Get rewarded. Yeah.
And so that's where kind of what we're going to unpack today in terms of where's your blessings come from? What's the reason behind it? How can you get blessed? What things can block your blessings? All that stuff we're going to dive into.
So with that, how would you all maybe define blessing? Like, what does blessing mean? So let's kind of decipher that. If in the comments, if you can help us out, you can put a textbook or dictionary definition. You can kind of give us your idea. You can give us a text. But how would you say you would define a blessing?
As a gift.
Okay.
You were given something as a gift. And that gift could be like a wide array of things. It could be actual thing. It could be you're blessed with a person. Like people say, like, I was blessed with my son, my daughter, It could be you're blessed with a character trait. I was blessed with patience, But all of these things are like gifts that were given to you, I feel.
I have a question for you, though.
Yeah.
Can a blessing be something that you could perceive as negative?
At first, I definitely think so. I definitely think
How?
that, like, you can perceive the blessing as negative, but you can come to the realization that it is a blessing. Or some things could be double-edged, be a blessing and a curse. Yeah, like, for example, I am a textbook overthinker, and that helps me a lot, but it also hinders me a lot,
How does that help?
How does overthinking help? I think I have great analytical skills because of it. Like, I can think through things tremendously, just thinking out different scenarios and like how this thing can possibly go. But where it will hinder me is I'll end up thinking and not acting. So like I'll just be like calculating, and then I'll just be kind of like paralyzed. I'm like, well, which route do I take? I see all these possibilities. So it's like a blessing and a curse. You have to find. Well, I have to find the balance between like, okay, think things through, but also don't get paralyzed by all the possibilities you see.
Then how do you process prayer or a blessing? Right, we're using the term blessing. How, as an overthinker, do you get caught up in the weeds with certain topics or themes or things that's happening in your life? Do you perceive things in a way that, okay, sometimes things are just simple and you don't have to overthink? You know what I mean? So how do you process a blessing that may actually really be the blessing, but you're overthinking? You're really overthinking about it. You know what I mean?
That happens to me a lot. I feel like that's probably currently happening to me. What I've been trying to do, and it's hard because it's like very against my nature, but I saw something before and it was more geared towards faith, but I've been using it in this way too, where like how you build your, no, not faith, hearing God's voice. They're like how you build being able to hear God's voice is you have to like try, like practice. So like anytime you get an impression or a feeling, they're like, try it out. They were like, you will, by trying it out, you will learn the difference between certain things that are just like your mind and when it actually is God. Because you'll try and you'll see what things fail and you'll see like, oh, this time it worked. And you'll get more and more familiar with what's working and what's just actually you. So with this, I applied to this in terms of like, okay, I can easily overthink this, but it could be blessed, it could be not. Let me just start taking steps forward and then let me see where that goes. Now I have to like choose one of these paths that I see, but like, all right, let's choose. I feel like this might be where I should go. Let me try and let's see. And I'll tell God like what's happening. Like, all right, God, I'm not really sure. Lots going on in my head, but I feel like this is the way you're trying to direct me right now, or this is the blessing you're trying to give me right now. I'm going to walk towards it. Like, give me some confirmations that I'm going the right direction. Or if I'm not, clearly show me. But I'm letting you know that if I'm getting a lot of pushback, I'm taking that as you. So don't let the devil like mislead me here, because that's something I can easily, again, overthink. Well, look, I'm getting pushback, must be God. So I'm like, God, like if the devil is going to try to trick me, you got to block it, because I am telling you right now, I'm going to perceive what's going to happen as this. And I will say that when I do that, it has been working. Like I have been, like I'll see, okay, I'll either get the pushback and be like, well, this is not God, let me redirect, or it'll actually like work. And especially I try to do that in things where it shouldn't really work, or things are a little more complicated, so that it could be like God made that way. You know what I mean? And that does give me a lot more confirmation, and I'm able to stick to a path, if that makes sense,
So then I have a question for you, Shane. You said I could talk. Right?
Talk.
Okay. I don't want to take over the show, you know what I mean?
Ask your question.
Okay, so then according to this young lady, she presented a situation that, God told her that if she gets in the habit of doing right things in order to get blessed. Is that what I heard right?
Basically, yeah.
The fact that she gets frustrated because she's doing the right things, but she's not getting blessed, term blessed, right? And so her issue is the fact that she's not getting her prayers answered like a genie in a bottle, like God is you know what I mean? So then my question is, do we realize that God is not human? That God is supernatural? That God is the sustainer of the planets that, swirl in the universe? And that he doesn't have to do anything for any of us. He doesn't have to. But when he does, and if he does it because God is good, right? But is it our expectations that let us down?
Expectations. But shouldn't we have that expectation of God?
But why? Is that what we're taught?
Well, if he's good, shouldn't we expect good from him?
Well, if we continue to expect good from him, then why wouldn't we expect bad?
And you know what's funny about this? It's question, right? Because it's just like, well, if this, then why not? But then why not this, And that's where it gets really dicey. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to just bring it back. So then is our definition of blessing wrong?
In terms of it
Or should it be reframed?
Should it be reframed? Yeah, so in her frame of mind, something's amiss here, right? And so kind of like what you were saying, where is what I feel like I should be getting? And again, it could be misplaced because like, why do you feel like you deserve anything, right? Because of this, right? So I get that part. However, we hear of texts of if our human parents could give us good gifts, how much more like the Heavenly Father, right? And so like there's, a text like that sticks out to you, and we know that he knows, as much as he's the God of the planets, he knows the hairs on our head, like he's detailed oriented. So there's kind of like,
but then he's
kind
the
of like
potter
balancing.
and we're the clay.
True.
Right?
Right.
Who is the clay that we should expect the potter to mold and create them in the way that we want him to? Meaning that a lot of times we ask for certain blessings and such, but the thing is at the end of the day, what do we expect those blessings to be? The tiny bit I know about justification by faith is that there's nothing we can do that would that God would require, that God is required to give us anything at all. Nothing. We can be the greatest of the great, the best person that we can be, and yet that's still not good enough. Because God loves us just because, which gets dicey too, right?
Yeah.
That in itself is dicey.
And it's funny, because I watched a video and I would have never thought it connected to anything we talked about today, but there's an article I read today about, everybody knows, you didn't have to watch Oprah to know this one thing that she did with giving her. You get a car. Yes. You get a car and you get a car. And so one of the people, love it in social media that all these years later, someone on TikTok's like talking about her experience. She's like, I was one of the people in the audience. And so she's like, let me tell you my experience. And so it's cool to kind of see these type of things now, because before you only trusted the 60-minute show you saw on TV. There's no way for these people to widely communicate to the masses how the show actually went. So she's talking about how the show was actually like a 2.5-hour ordeal. Of course, it's only an hour taping of her favorite things. And so, in being in the audience, you can't believe that, you're getting an iPad and all that type of stuff, but then she drops the bombshell of you're getting a car, right? And so she's like, the audience is crazy, crying, and even after the show, people are still in tears. And like they're talking to each other, so they weren't allowed to leave because they had to meet with lawyers to like sign, documents and everything. And so she's like, there was a moment where Oprah kicked off her shoes, right? So she just sat with them while they were waiting. So she didn't just leave the stage. Oprah like stayed with them and was listening and talking to people. And so she's like, I'm noticing a lot of you are saying that you don't deserve this. And then Oprah's like, you're right. You don't deserve it, but you're worthy of it. And so the lady was like, kind of like taken back by it. And so, of course, as social media would be like, oh, that seems like a backhanded comment. But then other people were like, and she came on with a clarification video afterwards, and she said, what she meant by it is that there was nothing that we did to earn a car.
Right.
But don't let yourself stay stuck on deserving of a card. Take away the moment that it's been given to you and you're worthy of this moment, right?
I've deemed you worthy.
I've deemed you worthy of this gift, and you can kind of like bask in that.
Yeah.
And so that was actually something interesting that I think we can kind of relate to blessings, where we do begin to take away the 1 + 1 = 2 part of it, of just like, you know what, God, you actually don't have to bless me, because like on a daily, so many things, even when I've made those promises to you, like, God, if you save me from this, I will never do this again. Or everybody's made that type of situation
bargain
with God, like a bargain. And you know, you probably went back on it. Like maybe some people haven't, but for a lot of people, they even went back on those. There's nothing that we can actually do when he looks at our track record that can say, even if we tried our best for the past 30 days, 60, that would erase everything that we've done and be deserving of what he can give us, right? But he still says certain things about us that somehow we are worthy of certain things, and from his standpoint to us. But I think we do have to take away, there's nothing that we can actually do to get blessing,
to deserve it. And the thing is that doesn't the sun shine on the wicked,
the just
as
and the
just?
unjust? Yeah,
We're gonna go there.
Yeah.
We're gonna go there.
But before we go there, we have some comments. So let's see what the people are saying. So Stephanie says, I think you can perceive it as a negative. Look at Jonah. He was blessed to do the work of God, yet refused to be obedient. Rodney said, unexpected gift, something you did not look for, but fell in your lap or life. So that's like a definition. When God, Alegna says, when God removes people out of your life that you thought was a good friend or a good partner, you may be upset at first, but about this, but in the end, it could be a blessing. Stephanie says, as we all know, God says the heart is deceitful. Who knows the heart but the Lord? This is why we must go not based off of our own feelings or wants, but have that solid relationship with God. Rodney says we sometimes look for big blessings and look at others who are being blessed. But when was the last time you got sick or you've been on your job for the last 10 years? Blessings. That's a very good point. And one thing I'll add to that, Rodney, is you look at people's blessings and you don't know what comes with it. Like, be super careful being, jealous, or just even looking at other people and be like, why do you have this? And sometimes you don't even maybe intend for it to be a thing of jealousy, but you're just really asking God, like, when is it my turn? And the one thing that social media won't tell you, even people telling you their testimonies, is not all the time they're going to tell you all the details that went in before that come up. So be careful what you ask for, because you really don't know all that comes up with that. Brenda says blessings are what will be beneficial to you. However, blessings may not always appear positive to you. Simply because we do not know the future, cannot see ahead. And then there's a Bible text, Romans 8:28 says, all things work together for good to them that love God. I think we look at blessings in certain specifics. When things, where did it go? When things don't work out as we expected, we believe that God didn't bless. God gives us what we need, not what we want. And then Brian says a blessing is very subjective. Oh, okay. And then the last comment I see here is Kathleen Anderson. I was on my way to church and had a very bad fall. I had to go to the ER by ambulance. As a result, a serious issue came to light that would have gone unnoticed.
That's right there. That thing.
That type of thing.
Yes.
Right? Can that be a blessing?
Yes.
A blessing in disguise. We come up with these really cool phrases about things, but there's a lot of depth to this conversation. We're just at the tip of the iceberg. So, we kind of, so what we've found out so far is blessing so far doesn't seem like it has an easy definition. No. That's what I think we're finding out right here, right?
Or the fact that we believe that we deserve to be blessed.
Right. And so I think what we're getting to now is that we understand that there's really doesn't seem to be an equation to how to be blessed. Can we agree to that?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. All right. Cool. So we see that. So do we get so busy trying to please God and do all the right things that we begin to expect specific things from him? So, when you first come to God, there's like definitely an excitement. You get baptized, or you're just like, okay, God, I had an encounter with you. And you immediately hear things like, okay, I'm trying to get my life together or get my life right and stuff like that. And I don't know how often people say that just from only and exclusively a love for God. Now, it's possible that it can be so, and I want you to think over your own lives and correct my statement and, make it better. But when you think about it, getting baptized, like, again, inspirational moment, you got to a place where you're just like, I want to give everything to God. Like, I think he's the only way, maybe it's your past that's, behind you, and you're just like, okay, I'm charting a new course in front of me. However, in that process of trying to please God, and I think out of love, so I would say, yes, you do love God, there's a certain point in the human nature where that's just not enough, right? There's kind of like, if nothing ever really changed as a result of this, end up kind of like
your love would wane.
Your love kind of wanes because somewhere in the back of your mind, you're expecting something. You're expecting something. And so when it comes to that, how do we, I guess, balance between righteousness by works? Because, like I said, you're getting your life together, you're trying to please God and stuff like that, but not equating it to what you think should be in return from a relationship. There's so many things in the Bible that talks about, God's our Father, we're his children. So we have so many things. You look at nature, you look at the family dynamic. There's certain transactions that we can see in all these examples. How are we not to expect that from God?
So what I will say is this, especially when you first get baptized, you're like a baby, Okay. And I think as a baby, a lot of things can be and probably will be transactional because you're a baby, like you cry, they're gonna give you the food, but as you mature, you realize, all right, the world don't work like that, like it's not, I just get what I want when I want it. Just because I'm upset doesn't mean like the world's gonna come and please me, like mom's gonna come and give me what I need. That's not how it works. So I think it's the same way with God. Like at first, you're kind of riding on that high, but God doesn't want to just keep you there. He wants things to mature. And I'm not too sure about the middle, but I will say I think where God wants us to get is, I heard a pastor put it like this. He's like, God wants you to get to that, but if not type of faith. Like with the three Hebrew boys, where the king was like, I'm gonna throw you in the fiery furnace if you don't worship me. And they're like, look, God can deliver us, but if he doesn't, we're still not gonna bow down. We're still not gonna worship. So it gets to a point where like that God can bless you, but if he doesn't, it doesn't matter because I'm serving him because I love him. It's not because of what he does for me. It's because of who he is. That's the point where he wants us to get to, but it is a process to get there.
Right. That's definitely, it's a process. And again, it's kind of like reshaping how you think through your relationship and your faith journey. It's kind of like almost hitting that reset button.
Yeah.
Because the more I study the Bible and certain stories, the more I'm like, all right, God, if anything, you haven't lied. Because there's so many things where you see the rough patches, as three Hebrew boys, as like the story's right there.
Yeah.
Like the fire was turned on. Like typical blessing for us would be like, oh, you know what? They would have tried to light the fire, nothing would have happened. Like, man, do we have enough gas in here? Like, that's what we're kind of looking for. But sometimes God's route is like, no, we're going to put on the fire. We're going to make it 7 times hotter. And, like, we're going to put you in the lion's den. The lion's going to be there, and that's the thing. Like, there's stories in the Bible your child might die, and what, right?
Yeah,
You know, there's stories in the Bible that show all these examples of how maybe as God ourselves or what we think he would or should do is different than what he's actually done. So, and from that perspective, we can't really blame God because he's shown us in all of these different scenarios that the way that we see blessings and miracles don't start and stop at the way that we might be thinking. And so I do believe that God is not a God that discredits our feelings. And so I think that he would want to see us happy. There's certain things that when you even think about the Sabbath, right, of like a time of communion and stuff like that, isn't there a word blessed even in that commandment, right? And so like there's certain things that he does put his blessing and he creates for our enjoyment and happiness. However, I think we have to sometimes disconnect what we feel like makes us or where we find happiness and really try to pivot a little bit to like, all right, what does God see for me? And as this good father that he is, I know ultimately whatever he provides and whatever he makes a way for is for my good, which is for ultimately our happiness and the best for me.
So when do we eliminate the expectations of God for us and replace it with pure, raw trust?
Still working on it.
I think that's a life journey.
Yeah.
I think that is just like you said, it's a process.
Right.
Just like I believe a young lady or someone said earlier that when she starts to really dedicate her life to God, then all of a sudden things just start happening, you know? And, but I want to encourage that doesn't only happen with people who are building their, you know.
For sure.
You know, it's just, I think that's a human experience. However, it does seem to happen that way though, you know, and it is difficult. And I believe when the fire's turned up hot, folks get tired. The faith starts to wane. They start to pull back. And then next thing you know, okay, what do I do now? Right. You know, it's just easier not to dedicate myself, you know, because that happens in so many different ways.
Right.
Now, I'll say the cool thing that I love about God is that even when, like, it's hard to have that trust, right? And so you might be in that position where your trust is starting to wane. You're starting to be like, dang, like, all right, I'm trying to hold on to, like, you know, what we're saying here. You know, I'm trying to hold on. Okay, God, like, you know, I don't deserve it. Like, you're trying to hold on, but it's really hard. The great thing about God is that, like, even in this video, you know, she goes to God. It's like, well, hey, like, you can do that. There's nothing wrong with that. God doesn't look at that and be like, look at you coming to me with this foolishness. Don't you even know I create? Like, he doesn't have that attitude. Like, he's just going to redirect you. He's like, all right, I hear you. Okay, I hear you. And she got an answer, you know? Like, when you come to God with how you feel, he's going to give you an answer. He's not just going to be like, well, who are you? You know? He hears you. He feels your emotions. You can come to him with whatever emotion you have, and he's going to answer you. Like,
you sure?
Yes. I feel like there's
You've proven it all the time?
I have. I've started to. Myron Edmonds, and I've said this before, talked about how the Psalms are full of things David was praying. He was bringing God whatever was on his heart. Whatever. And he gonna bring it to God, and God heard him. Job went through all this stuff, and as much as we credit Job, he did do some, you know, like, woe is me, you know, cursed be the day I was born, cursed be my mother's womb. You know, he had, and you know, understandably so, he had some, you know, strong emotions, and God had to put him in check. But the thing is, God's going to answer. That's my point, you know. God's not just going to sit there and be like, well, I'm going to let you sit in that. Who do you think you are? No, he's going to answer. So if you have strong feelings about something, bring it to God. He will answer, you know. Bring it to him and listen. I believe it.
You're shaking your head, yeah. What, do you have something to say about that?
Because my head is all over the place with this. But the thing is that what happens when he doesn't answer? You know what I mean?
But what's the alternative though? Because the worst that's going to happen, right? If he does answer is you're going to be like, well, I don't trust him. I don't believe in it anymore. Well, you were already going to do that. You know?
You know the problem I have sometimes with folk, with Christian folk? We want to blame everything on the devil. So if God doesn't bless, then, it's the devil. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But remember in Job's case,
Right.
it was God that allowed the devil to do all that, right?
Absolutely.
So the thing is that when is a blessing a blessing? What is a blessing? Sometimes our journey takes us to situations where when we pray, that prayer cannot be answered because you didn't go through this yet in order for that prayer to be answered. You know what I mean? So meanwhile, you're waiting.
Yeah, but you gotta keep, like, if you
It's
do
that
nothing,
faith.
I feel like it's harder to keep on. But if you keep bringing that emotion to God, eventually, it might take some time, but He's gonna just keep coming to me, keep coming to me, keep coming to me, and you're gonna start to see tidbits. You're gonna. It's easier to hold on if you have someone to go to, but if you don't go to Him, you're kind of just gonna give up, and just be like, well, forget this, But it's like he's there to hear you and listen to you. So even if you feel like you're not getting the answer, I promise you, He's hearing you. So keep coming to Him.
For sure.
Yeah.
Keep knocking, keep knocking.
Keep talking.
Phaedra says blessings come in many forms, experiencing God's goodness and mercy. Brenda says, preach Andre. We're getting him to preach soon. I want to love God and trust Him in all circumstances. Stephanie says, I believe God is okay with us being skeptical like Gideon or even like the disciples. However, if your faith doesn't increase through a deeper relationship with God and know you can trust God, you'll end up like Israel or Judas. Brian says, I don't think God won't always answer. The Bible says He always listens and hears you, but there are many times in the Bible where people didn't get their prayers answered, but they had to move forward. That's a very, very good point. Emphasis on preach, Andre. So, there's something where I was actually just skimming, and not everybody. People have heard of the Beatitudes, right? And one thing this site from Desiring God talks about is, blessed are those who are persecuted for righteousness' sake. Blessed are the poor. Blessed are you when others revile you and persecute you and utter all kinds of evil against you falsely on my account. And so this author is saying, rarely if ever do I see people posting about how blessed they are as poor in spirit or persecuted like we read about in the Beatitudes. With that in mind, what is a biblical definition of what it really means to be truly blessed? And so even just reading that just now, I was like, the Beatitudes probably has more words blessed than anywhere in the Bible combined, right? It's just like, blessed is this, blessed is this. But like he says, a lot of them are not the things that you would associate to as blessed. And so it goes down into us. He's basically saying, instead of telling the world to come to us, come see how I bless my people. God never says that. He says, go to the world, and if it costs you your life, lay it down. And there's certain things. There's certain things where you're just like, man, this is kind of backwards in what I think about what a relationship with God could look like. And so going further down, when it comes to happiness and God bestowing it, it may not always be an earthly thing that's given to you. And so it might just be that heaven's your reward.
And are you willing to wait?
And are you willing to wait for something like that? Like, what if it is that, okay, you know what, you let a poor person, you fed them, God acknowledges that. He sees that you're trying and you're trying to live a good life, and He's seen the turnaround that you've made and all that type of stuff. But you're not seeing the payoff per se. But is it possible that God's payoff is not in the things that we're looking for? It may not be in that, you know, you might still be living paycheck to paycheck. It might be a health thing. It might be, you know, these type of things. And God's just like, you don't got to worry about all this earthly type of stuff, because like your reward is sealed with me, but it's in heaven. And so that's where it might be like, you know, this race is not for the swift per se, you know, and that's where I think the devil sometimes can get some points, right? Because he's the rewarder of like, oh, you do this, I'll give it to you right now. You know, we talk about celebrities that that might be, what's the religion that a lot of them Scientology, and you know the things that people talk about with, you know, the different religions where it's really about, I would say Christians say that you kind of like, whoever they're worshiping and stuff like that, it's kind of like rewarding them for that. And so even with that book that we read, into A Trip into the Supernatural, if there's some truth to that book, it's scary that there would be the devil, his imps, demons, and all that type of stuff just ready and waiting to give riches and to give all these opportunities to people that are doing their will. And you would want to think that like, okay, God, I would never want to stoop to those levels to just get those things. Can't you just bless me in doing the right thing? And you're like, man, but like, why does it not seem like that's coming across that way? And it might be because like, you know what? It's not that saying being rich is bad, but your riches may not be given here. So what do you think about that? I kind of laid out the Beatitudes of where the Bible has put some of the blessings on. So when you think about that, what comes to mind?
Well, we'll say something you said at the end about like the devil. I immediately thought the devil's been doing that since forever, but definitely from Jesus. Like Jesus is supposed to be like the example, the perfect example. He came to earth as a human and he went through everything that we're supposed to have gone through. And when Jesus was tempted, like in the wilderness, one of them was Satan's like, bow down and worship me and I will give you all of this. Because that's how Satan operates. He's like, hey, you do this, you give me your admiration and worship, trust me, you're good. I got you. You're not going to wait till the other foot, you know, the other shoe drops. But that's how he operates. Very transactional. And it's already how we're wired to think. That's what makes it very difficult to break out of this type of transactional thinking, because from when we were born, in school, in our jobs, it's always, you know, try hard, work hard, and you get your reward.
Right.
But with God, it doesn't work like that. So that's what makes it's so difficult.
It's a really like tough, I think, thing to balance, because and everything else is transactional. So how do you just all of a sudden
like turn that switch
off? There's some comments here. Let's see. Brian said, actually, it's my dad first. Michael Clark said, prayers may be answered in ways we don't expect. Brian said, preach, bro. I don't know who you talking to, man. Brenda Hunt says, now you're preaching, Mr. Shane. We may not see our blessings here on earth. Heaven will be our reward. Pastor Barry Bonner says, blessings come through obedience to God always. And look at Maddie just stepping in and covering our tech team. I see you with the comments. I think these are things that we are starting to really realize as Christians, that, and we have to really be mindful and remind ourselves of that. So in that process of trust and faith, we have to remember, like, you know, it may not be answered. My prayer may not be answered in the way that I would want. Which one do you want me to read?
Take up your cross and follow Jesus.
Your cross and follow Jesus.
Matthew 16:24 to 26.
Yeah. You want me to read it?
You can read it. Yeah,
Okay.
sure.
Then Jesus told his disciples, if anyone would come after me, let him deny himself and take up his cross and follow me. For whoever would save his life will lose it, but whoever loses his life for my sake will find it. For what will it profit a man if he gains the whole world and forfeits his soul? Or what shall a man give in return for his soul? And that's a heavy text.
It is.
It's a heavy text. And I'm not God, clearly, right? But I don't know if we can always be trusted with all blessings, right? And so if a certain blessing would mean our detriment, wouldn't it be the best interest of the parent to not potentially give it? Yeah. And so the role of a parent is to kind of like, set that path. Of course, you can always choose not to do what a parent says, but a parent is willing for the children to be upset with them for the betterment of their life. And that's kind of like, I would say we would have to view Christ and this partnership of God, the Holy Spirit, of at the end of the day, their job and what they've promised us is he went back, mansions, all that type of stuff. We're on a saving mission, right? He's died for us. And on top of trying to be there ourselves, we're trying to bring people with us. Like, that's ultimately what we're still here for, right? Everything else that comes with that, I would say, is a bonus. Being able to still find love and to be able to, buy a house, get these jobs, get these cars. There's still things that we can enjoy in life, but what's the ultimate reason for being here? And I think if we don't stay focused and remembering, like, God, why am I here? And we kind of focus on like what we should be getting while we're here and all that type of stuff, it will make life a little depressing.
But what if many of the reasons why subjectively our prayers aren't answered is because there are things that God may have already given us the answers to, but we didn't follow it because perhaps we didn't have we didn't recognize his voice, that God was already speaking, or he'd already given us the direction, but we didn't follow it because we weren't comfortable enough. You know what I mean? What if we're the ones holding back the prayer answers?
That would make a lot of sense. It would make so I think about how do I? No, someone else go. I'm fine.
And the reason why I say that is because, oftentimes, we hear it all the time. Oh, I need money to pay my bills. Why didn't God, send me the money? Or I need a new car. My car is broken down. Lord, I've been praying about this for so long. You know my situation. Or, sister is sick and she's not getting better. I have this disease. I'm not getting healed. Those are all things that perhaps God already given us the inspiration for. Okay, example about sickness. Okay, don't shoot me for this, all right? But I'm just saying that oftentimes, why do people get sick? It's not because necessarily it's not always because we randomly get sick. Oftentimes, people get sick, one, because of mental issues, stress that's brought upon the body, that impacts the body. We're inspired to trust, believe, have faith, practice, coping skills and blah, 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 all those good things, trusting God. But the thing is that we're not putting into place, let's say, a healthy diet. We don't exercise. We work too long. We don't sleep enough. We don't, and all these things. Next thing you know, we're sick. Lord, help me, heal me, So in other words, if we would have put those things into action, we probably would have been healed. Up to about, I think I read somewhere, up to 70% of people who are admitted to hospitals, it's not because of something that's actually physically wrong all the time. It's because of things that the way we think, things that there's like psychosomatic issues, things that, you know, our mind really just the stress and the pressure that we put on ourselves. And how about, you know, we need the car. Oh, but, and then you get this inspiration. Oh, well, but then you can do this, so you can do that. Your mind is racing with all the things you can do, but I'm not comfortable. I'm too scared. I don't want to go out and do this. Oh, that's too hard though. But we already received the inspiration. What if God already answered it? But we didn't perceive it that way because subjectively, we're not ready to deal with it. So we blame God. We shoo away the blessing.
I'm actually very glad you said that. And especially the last part kind of stuck with me because I'll go back to your example of he's the potter, we are the clay. What are we to make the demands of God, right?
Yes.
And so even in our prayers, and like Brian said, you know, I believe he is listening to all of them. How can we then, I would view praying as releasing of the wheel. Like, God, take the wheel, right? I'm putting this at your feet because obviously if I could do it myself, I would have done it. Right? So I'm laying it at your feet. And when you lay it at his feet, you are taking your hands off the wheel. Then how, when you come up in prayer, you still have, it's almost like you have your hand still on the wheel. And so there's certain things where, let's say that it was a financial type of blessing, right? But your financial blessing will come in the way of, I don't know, public speaking, right? But you're just like, I don't do good with people. I don't like crowds. I don't like, there's too much attention on me. And again, it might be just that thing that God just happens to use, from what we see in the Bible, things that don't make sense. Look at every one of the disciples. They don't make sense for being closest to, like being selected, much less being closest to God. And he's just like, it's you that I want. And there's certain things where he just lines it up where, you know, it could be partly like, when you see it done, then you're going to have to know it's just me and not like nothing of you, because like you would have never seen yourself on a stage in front of people, like inspiring people, or you would have never saw yourself, seen yourself completing college or whatever it is. But God just has a way from history of doing things in a way where you won't be able to look back and be like, I did that.
Right.
Like there's going to be no question because of the way it's done, how it's brought about, all that type of stuff.
Literally tying what you both just said together, honestly. So when you were saying certain things we're asking for, and it's like God already gave us the inspiration. When Jesus was here, a lot of his miracles, the lame man, he couldn't walk. I'm sure he's been asking God, like, you know, praying to be able to walk for his whole life. And God said, get up and walk. He gave him the command. But the man at one point had to think to himself, all right, I'm going to listen to you and get up. But he could just be like, no, Jesus, you got to heal my leg. Get up and walk. No, but can you like heal my legs? Bro, get up and walk. Like, so he get.
Just like the leper, right?
The leper, right. Go, yeah. You want me to? Yeah, go show yourself to the priest. Go. You know, the Naaman. Go dip in that dirty river 7 times.
7 times, that's right.
What's that supposed to do? Go dip in there 7 times, you know? And that Naaman's a great example because he went and go dip, what, like 6 times? And then turn around.
7.
You're already in there, but we'll like start something. It's like, no, I'm not seeing it yet. Finish it. I told you about this. Go finish it.
And how does that apply to our lives in a general basis? It characterizes the human ideals, you know, just the intent of, we need to be comfortable.
We do.
We're saturated in comfort. You know what I mean? And I think it's all of us, honestly. At some level, some point in time, God calls us to be uncomfortable.
Unfortunately.
And so we rob ourselves of his blessings. That's why I'm glad you define what is a blessing. You know, subjectively, objectively. Some people look like they have a whole lot of blessings, you know, and yet we're looking at them. Meanwhile, we can have the same thing. We withhold our blessings.
And not only that, the blessing that you have, you never know that I might be envying that blessing. And it's like, you kind of like look at, oh, I got nothing to offer. You see what he or she got. And like, there's certain things, I promise you have no idea that someone's looking at you wishing they had what you had.
I was just going to say that.
Absolutely.
That's right. You're looking at that person. They're looking at you. That's right.
They're looking at you. So it's really just keeping that in mind. One of the things that Luke 14:12-14, that's almost like a Bible study tonight. It says, then he turned to the host, the next time you put on a dinner, don't just invite your friends and family and rich neighbors, the kind of people who will return the favor. Invite some people who never get invited out, the misfits from the wrong side of the tracks. You'll be an experience, a blessing. They won't be able to return the favor, but the favor will be returned. Oh, how it will be returned at the resurrection of God's people. Now, I want to put some emphasis on that. You'll be an experience, a blessing. They won't be able to return the favor, but the favor will be returned. And how it will be returned? At the resurrection of God's people.
I think it's returned twice, if you ask me.
Okay, what's the second? What's the?
I think that is the ultimate.
Ultimate,
gift.
right.
But I think when we do good, it comes back to us. You know.
And that, and honestly, we deserve none of it. But if anything, God's a man of his word, right? So the promise is the second, and the first one, variable.
Yeah.
You know, and so I think, like you said, there's things where God takes care of his people. And it may not always look like I said, for some people, it might be paycheck to paycheck, but God might be asking, but have you ever gone wanting?
Right.
Like, I've got you.
We're looking for something to be given, but it's like, well, have you thought about things that didn't happen that could have?
We're looking for like a Job type of experience. Like, okay, you know, I went through all of this. Like, okay, where's my double? Right. It's kind of just like, you know, you think of the tithes and offering, you know, open the windows of heaven and pour out such a blessing that there won't be room enough to receive it and stuff like that. And so we do think of, you know, things that way. But there's certain things that are guaranteed. And when it comes to promises, like heaven is like that thing that's always kind of like promised. Like he's like, I went back to work on this. And now, like, this is what I'm ready to give you. Like, this is for all of those times where you're like, man, like how much more and all that. One thing from Ellen White that always stuck out to me is, I guess in one of her visions, the idea that she says being in heaven and thinking heaven was cheap enough. Like you didn't pay enough for this. And it's just like, when you think of your human experience and everything you've been through, you talked about like even these past couple of weeks with your husband, that's just a small fragment. You can think about anything that happened in your life, and we've gone through some tragedies, right? And you can arrive up in heaven, look around, and be like, I didn't pay enough for this. Like, and that's why I think God's just putting so much weight on, this is my promise to you. Like, this is the ultimate blessing. You just got to get here. Like, I'm ready to give you, because like, you get here, your mind's going to be blown. And like, as much as even in the little blessings that we do get now, and we're like, we're not worthy, we're undeserving. Like, getting up there and to experience it is going to be something totally different, where you're just like, I don't even know if I should be here right now. That's just a crazy type of like picture to think about. Let me see, I see some comments in here. Thank you for interacting with us. God always answers prayer according to his will. The human side of us feels disappointed when it's not the way we expect. If we are faithful, we will understand why. It might be difficult to digest when we really believed for a different outcome. However, that's when our faith comes in. Sometimes it's easier said than done. Lay up your treasures in heaven. Stephanie says, I encourage people to live a life of repentance and fasting. A lot of people are held in bondage, which can be difficult to break out, probably because of someone in the family who came out of covenant with God and caused a curse on the lineage. This all is possible. Hint, some lineage can go centuries with no marriage, infirmity problems, sickness like cancer passing down. Read Jeremiah 33:10. As I draw closer to God, I've been repairing my lineage, which why Satan is trying to take me out literally, and through my children, he's trying to keep us bound. This means I need to make sure my children are praying and I'm praying for them. Work out your salvation with fear and trembling. That's a lot. There's a lot, but I do agree that it's a daily process. It's really you hear die daily and stuff like that. You really, you have to go through life and really go about it and be like, all right, God, like, you're in charge of my plans. You're in charge of my day. I know you got me. And it's like, really go away from your prayers always having to be on your knees, dear Father, but like talk to him throughout the day and just be like, like, what is this day about to be? Like, I don't know why I'm going through this, but really, like, God, I believe that you're going to take care of me. And one way to help with that is to recount what he's done before. Absolutely. And that's the whole point of our segment of, if he did it for me, he can do it for you, right? It's a whole testimony time of, let me show you how God has blessed me. Not so you have to start to wonder like when it's my turn, but just knowing that we've heard in church, if God blessed me, then he's down the street and he's about to, like, your blessings coming. There's certain things we say along the way to kind of like encourage us, but it's really supposed to be inspirational in the sense of he's got you and you have your own testimony that you really need to start recounting of how he actually has blessed you and what always keep ahead of you what's to come, which ultimately, is heaven. There's a story about the dinner party too. That's in that same part, in that same chapter that talks about
with the clothes. So
it's with the what?
Keep going.
Where I said at the resurrection of God's people, like that's where they, that's where the favor would be returned. And so it continues and it says, this triggered a response from one of the guests. How fortunate for the ones who get to eat dinner in God's kingdom. Jesus followed up, yes, for there was once a man who threw a great dinner party and invited many. When it was time for dinner, he sent out his servants to get the invited guests, and they're like, come in for the food's on the table. They all began to beg off, one after other, making excuses. I bought a piece of property and need to look over it. Send my regrets. The next person said, I bought 5 teams of oxen. I really need to check them out. Send my regrets. The other one, I just got married and we need to get home to my wife. Sorry. The servant went back and told the master. He was outraged and told the servants, quickly go out into the streets and, get anybody that will come, invite them to this meal. And that's lay your hand on the homeless, the misfits, anybody that you could put your hands on and bring them here. The servant said, Master, I did what you commanded and there's still room. The master said, go out to the country roads. Wherever you find them, bring them in. I want my house to be full. Let me tell you, not one of those originally invited is going to get so much as a bite out of my dinner. And so, like, what I even read in that just now, the people that were into, it seems like, the love of their stuff, the relationships, oxen, property, the wife, all these excuses as to why they couldn't come to this feast. And at that point, like, God's like, all right, let's go to people that will take this and let me give it. And he's sending servants. He's just like, go get them. Tell them there's food here. And even when it wasn't full, he's like, I want my house full. So he's not satisfied with this, like a few. He's like, no, I want as many people. Fit them in. And at that point, like, what I'm realizing is just like, you know what? Sometimes there's the verse about it's harder. What's like the needle, the camel
to go through the eye of a needle.
Right. And sometimes having all that stuff makes our Christian walk more difficult.
It can.
And so these things that we would look at as blessings of like, the blessing of relationship, blessing of property, blessing of money, all these type of things. Not in and of itself is it a curse or anything like that, but it kind of shows an example of what can happen in those type of scenarios. So really you have to trust God as your father and say like, God, I know you know what's best for me. You know the beginning from the end, and I'm trusting you with however you're going to bless me. And I know every day is a blessing. Every day I wake up, it's a blessing. And if ultimately my biggest reward is heaven, I hope that you help me to be satisfied with that. And it's just like, that needs to be a prayer even of itself, like getting to a place where you're like satisfied with like, God, however you see fit for my life, help me to have like see that same way.
Yeah.
True.
It is, okay, so I think we got all the comments. Blessings are hard, especially when you feel like you go through a drought. Right.
True.
But I wanted to leave with one last thought on this topic, which is the story of Simon. Right. And Jesus was preaching, and one day he noticed 2 empty boats on the edge, and stepping into one of the boats, Jesus asked Simon, its owner, to push the boat out into the water. So he sat in the boat, taught the crowds from there. When he was finished speaking, he said to Simon, now go out where it is deeper, let down your nets to catch some fish. Master, Simon said, we worked hard all last night and didn't catch a thing. So this goes back to what Andre said about the other examples, questioning God when he's about to do something. We worked hard all last night and didn't catch a thing, but if you say so, I'll let the nets down again. And this time their nets were so full of fish that they began to tear. A shout from help brought their partners in the other boat, and soon both boats were filled with fish and on the verge of sinking. That is crazy. So when Simon Peter realized what had happened, he fell to his knees before Jesus and said, this is where I want you guys to pay attention. Oh Lord, please leave me. I'm such a sinful man. For he was awestruck by the number of fish that he had caught, as were the others with him. His partners, James, John, and the sons of Zebedee, were also amazed. Jesus replied to Simon, don't be afraid. From now on, you'll be fishing for people. And as soon as they landed, they left everything and followed Jesus. And so one thing that caught me in this was he said to Jesus, after Jesus blessed him, oh Lord, please leave me. I'm such a sinful man. Which kind of debunks something. Jesus does not necessarily bless based off of performance.
Absolutely.
Simon here was just like, he questioned God first. He's just like, God, I already did that. We were out there and we caught nothing. And he's just like, but I guess while he was speaking, he had a change of heart. But he's like, you know what? If you say so, okay. Getting to the point where not only is he catching one fish, but his boat's beginning to sink from how many fish he has. Ty Tribbett tried to do an example and stress how much God is willing to bless you. He's like, this ain't even a word, but fishes. And he's just like, shout fishes with me. And it's just like, you have so much that God's about to, God did that. And his highlight is, Lord, leave me, I'm sinful. And so what I want you to kind of think about with this topic is, I know sometimes we can be really hard on ourselves, when you think through your Christian journey, and it's not always, even you personally, you're not always living up to the standard that you would even like for yourself as a Christian. And this is a moment where you can probably say, thank God that he doesn't view things the way that we do. And that's where when we read your righteousness are as filthy rags, really trying your best is not the thing that he's necessarily looking for. And when you read stories like this, it's not to encourage you, like, keep doing whatever you want and God's still gonna bless. It's not really that concept, but it's really the inspiration of, like, when you fall, you can get back up again. And like this same God that the sun shines on the just and the unjust alike. There's certain things where, really have the hope that in life, like, God really wants the ultimate best for you, which we've kind of talked about, like what that best looks like. And even though every day may not be your stellar Christian day or, whatever it is, thank God that we have stories like in the Bible where we can see, like, God, I'm a sinner. Like, why are you even blessing me? And like, God is like reaffirming even in those moments. It's just like, I know everything. I knew you were a sinner before I even blessed you. I bypassed that. I bypassed that. I saw your need even before I said come. Right? Like, he knew he was he's like, I'm going to fill this need. And like, that even inspired Simon to be like, oh, I got to go where you're going, And so when it comes to blessings, I know there might be things where you're wondering, when's it my turn? When's it my turn? Let's list some things. What are some things that people wait for in life? I know relationships could be one.
Relationships, jobs, cars,
healing,
just
deliverance,
deliverance.
Over temptation, over whatever the sin is. Like, there's certain things where you're just in this waiting period with God. And you're just wondering, like, God, when are you going to do it for me? When is it going to be my turn? And I hope that in this conversation, it changes your perspective a little bit on how God works and gives you a greater appreciation that is not about to be just what you have to do, because we can't do anything that's ultimately, we can't earn it, but someone deems us as worthy of it. And so it's kind of like daily just walking in that. It's crazy. Do you guys have like your final thoughts on the topic?
I'll just re-say what I said before. If you're asking where's your blessing, really try and change your perspective too, because you might be asking where's my blessing, and really what you're asking is where's this specific blessing. But you are blessed in many, many ways. You just have to change your perspective. Think about all the things that you do have. Think about, if you are a healthy person, think about the health that you have. Or if you aren't healthy, think about how you could be even worse, not healthy, Think about the things that could have happened to you but didn't. So like, you want to reframe your perspective. I feel like that will help you with that question. That'll also just help you in general to be happier in life. And I think God will honor that too, seeing that, okay, it's almost like, okay, you're happy with what you have. Okay, I'm going to give you a little more, like, okay, you're happy with, I'm going to give, and make sure the things that you are blessed with, that you're using it for good, like if God has blessed you with what you have and you're not doing anything with it, why would he bless you with more to not do anything with, like, that doesn't really make sense.
Right.
So also think about that. That's what I'll say.
I like that.
Our walk with God, it's a journey. A lot of things that we go through, understanding prayer, understanding the relationship. It's a relationship. And a lot of times a relationship is twofold. And we need to understand how we interact with God, subjectively and objectively, and limit the expectations. Understand that God doesn't have to give us anything. He really doesn't. And God is not human, but we communicate and we interact and we expect that he should respond to us as if he's human, and he's not.
Which is a great thing.
That's why I'm saying I'm glad that you use the term reframe. There's a lot of things we need to do to reframe and understand, well, maybe I'm the problem. Maybe it's not about God at all. Maybe it's me.
That's a very good point. Michael says, imagine a non-fisherman telling a professional fisherman how to fish. Simon could have told Jesus, I'm a pro here. Listening to God is so important.
Mhm.
Yeah, swallowing pride.
That's
yeah.
what we do a lot of times, though.
Yeah.
A lot of times.
Yes. And Stephanie gives a suggestion that as we have time, Acts 10, 1 through 4 is a text that you should read. So definitely after the show, check out that particular text. So when it comes to the walk, we always have a segment where we invite you to talk to us. So you might have questions that you've just always wondered about, really don't know who to ask, or you want to do it anonymously, and so we provide a method to do that. So we did introduce a new website a month or two ago called thewalklive.org. And if you go to that website, you can see our past episodes, and then you can also submit over there questions to the area called Talk to the Walk. And that's where we get your questions from. So today's question is, this might be appropriate. Let's see. How do I determine when my test is over? I find myself having the same test. Each test, I change my ways, reading the word, a deeper relationship with Christ, cutting out bad influences, but the test keeps repeating. How do I determine when my test is over?
That's a good question.
That's a good question.
How do I determine when my test is over? I find myself having the same test. Each test, I change my ways, reading the word, a deeper relationship with Christ, cutting out bad influences, but the test keeps repeating. How do I determine when my test is over? And so I'm trying to understand, I guess, in this question, is the test coming and they're just passing it each time? Or is
Maybe
the test
like,
coming?
like a struggle.
It's like a struggle, okay.
I'm going through this struggle, and like I'm trying to do the right things and read and, get connected with God, but I'm still going through this struggle.
I'm thinking that when he stops experiencing the same test, then he learned whatever lesson he needs to learn.
Like when I hear this question, I'm thinking about the Israelites, wandering for 40 years because they couldn't learn just to trust God. Like that's it. That's literally it. Just trust Him.
Well, it took 40 years, right, in the wilderness, right?
Yeah, and it could be that you think that you've learned what you need to learn, but maybe you haven't quite learned it yet.
That's right.
It could be that. And
That's right.
I hope that's not the case. That's an unfortunate answer, but it's a very possible answer.
It's valid.
Yeah.
I would say, to add to that, and the sooner you get to the place where you consider that as a possibility, the sooner you might be on your way out of the test or, whatever it is. I would say to this person that, God doesn't get pleasure in like setting up tests and be like, all right, let's see how they navigate around this one, and so if there's a test that's allowed, view it as an opportunity of growth. And so there's going to come a point where this test comes to you and it's not even going to faze you anymore. And so when you get to that type of point, you're going to be able to look back and be like, only God. Because I remember when I used to get this test before, and I used to almost always crumble, or I did crumble, or I would do good certain days, and then I would, relapse, whatever it is. But there's going to become a point, if you stay with it, that you're going to be able to look back and be like, you're going to be testifying to and helping other people going through the same thing and be like, I was in your situation, but God. And so like, that's something I would say, in that type of stick with, as crazy it might sound, stick with the test, because you're about to be somewhere different.
Right. And in other words, so you're saying in over time, it'll continue to decrease in intensity to the point where it won't be a test anymore. Not that you won't continue to experience the challenge.
It's still there.
Right.
You change, so you can deal with it.
Right. Another myth, right?
That the test is gonna disappear.
Right. Like the tests are gonna disappear. So like a preacher talked about basically the standpoint that he got married and he thought that all his sexual temptations would go away, once he got married. And he's like, that's not the case. He's like, do women just go away? He's like, do I just all of a sudden not see anything anymore? He's like, that's really not how it goes. But your relationship with God, and then of course your love for the person you're with, really helps to dictate what you do. And it's not really, the problem is not necessarily that you're having the temptation or anything like that, but it's really what you do, you know, with it. So don't even really feel bad about like, oh my gosh, this is still happening. But it's kind of like, you know, once you're at that crossroad, where are you going with it? And so as Ms. Luella said, like, it still could be there. So don't be discouraged by the fact that it's still there, but be encouraged that you're going to a place where it's not going to phase you the same way that it did before. And so unfortunately, you know, wherever the test, whether it's, you know, God using it to grow you or the devil's like, I'm trying to get you off the path. It's if it's the devil, it's not going to work the same way as it used to. So just stick with it.
What if we started to appreciate the tests? What if we started to recognize that these tests are for our own good, or challenges or difficulties or problems, whatever? What if we got to the point where we stopped moaning and groaning about the difficulties in life, and we said, well, Lord, I know you allowed this in my life for my own good. When can we get to that point? Again, it's a journey.
Yeah.
Every day.
That renewing your mind daily.
Right.
That's right.
Be honest with the Lord. Be honest with the Lord. Tell him it's
And
hard.
yourself.
But tell him to give you the strength. He's walking right there with you. And sometimes we just gotta ask. I'll also say, to just since we said it in the show, I don't remember what the context of this verse was, but some things are only done through prayer and fasting.
Just read it yesterday. That's
so
crazy.
Sometimes you gotta take some
deeper than you ever did.
drastic steps when it comes to deliverance. And so you might be praying about it. You might be blocking phone numbers. You might be this, that, the other. Sometimes that just won't do it. And maybe that kind of is the thing that God's showing you. Like the way you've dealt with other things, it's not going to work with this particular one.
That's right.
And I'm definitely not one to pray and fast, unfortunately. Not that I would say, there's certain prayer warriors in the church that just don't even need a reason to pray and fast. They'll just call it and just be like, you know, we're just maintaining our, you know, it's like we're not asking for something specific because we need healing for a person. You know, there's some people that just are in that flow, and I'm just like, man, that's good. I remember there was only, I think I can count one time where I've actually like prayed and fasted, like especially the food one. There was like a time where at work I was just like, I'm skipping lunch and I'm just for a week praying about this. And let me tell you, one of the top times I've heard God so clearly was in that time. And I'm just like, man, I wish I could make this up. But it was really in that time where I said, like, God, I'm so serious about needing an answer about this. I'm going to pray and fast. And I remember by the time the fast ended on the Friday, it was like I was getting ready to go to work. I said my prayers, but I was going to skip devotion. And for some reason, I had that feeling like, no, read your devotion. I'm just like, I don't got time. I'm like, you know, and it's like, read your devotion. I opened the devotion and it was random. It wasn't like a day of the week type of thing. I just opened it. The title of the devotion gave me the answer I was looking for the entire week. Wow. And like when I read it, I was just like, this is insane. This is like really, really, really insane. So all that's to say, you know, sometimes, you know, fasting is that drastic thing for a lot of people, but you might even consider giving that a try. There's certain things that are only done through that.
That's right.
keep on bringing your talk to the walks. We're going through them, and again, like we've said, we get enough of these, we'll convert a show into just talk to the walk, and just really try to talk about some of the questions that you might have in life. We're walking through this journey together, so let's talk about it. There's a couple of things that we want you to know about. So first, as you support this show, make sure you like and subscribe at The Walk Live. This really helps us out as we continue to grow. Don't keep it to yourself. If you feel like there's somebody that could benefit from the conversation, make sure you share it with them. We're on podcasts, so Apple, Spotify. You can listen to us while you work out. You can watch us on YouTube and Facebook. So make sure you do support and share the show. You can donate as you would like. There's a Cash App, $MT Zion SDA. You could put AY as the note if you want to donate. Right now, we are raising funds towards Homecoming 2023. We are trying to bring Oakwood's dynamic praise here for the weekend, and it is not cheap, but we believe we can do it with your help. So if you can, definitely, donate to that cause. Homecoming is the third weekend in October. More details to come with time. If you're a young adult, tomorrow there's a young adult rally at the Gilgal SDA Church. So if you're in the Orlando area, you want to, try something different out, young adult rally, the best part is church starts at 12:15. 12:15. You can sleep in a little bit. So 12:15, and then there's we're going to be featured on a special episode of The Walk at 4 p.m. as well, where we're going to be talking about money as the topic. There's events all day long. So meet us at Gilgal SDA Church. And I think that's all of our upcoming events that we have for now. We still intend on having NBA watch parties coming soon. So also stay tuned for that. But we thank you so much for the support that you've shown our show. Oh, the fundraiser.
Yeah, you got to talk about the fundraiser.
Okay, this is the last one. So I don't know how you're gonna find it unless you're my friend. But
if there's a link I could put in the comments.
We're doing a thing that if you would like to help us with raising funds, we're doing something that I'm donating on behalf of my business, a cruise for two. A cruise for two on the weekend of Thanksgiving, so Friday to Monday, and we're taking donations. So your donation just gets you entered. So all your donations are going towards Homecoming weekend. It's a really fun way to help us out, and one person's going to be announced as a winner of being able to set sail on the high seas for a weekend for two, and it was just by supporting the cause. So you can find me on Facebook, Shane Clark. Andre is going to find some ways to potentially sharing it as well. Okay. Yes. But let's go ahead and pray this thing out. Dear Jesus, we just want to thank you so much for the opportunity of just the Sabbath, ending our week, and coming and starting the week with worship and just discussing topics surrounding about you, and really learning a little bit more about you than maybe we've learned before or thought about before. Thank you for the platform that we have to be able to do it. And I pray that in our discussions today about blessings, that we really understand a little bit more about the ways that you bless people, and like the way that you bless cannot even be compared to how we as earthly beings would bless our children or our families and our friends. You take things to the next level and say you've gone away to prepare a home for us. And so that even if we don't receive all the things that typically makes man happy, which at the end of times can just be burned away and not lasting, you've gone to prepare something that's eternal, that will last forever. So help us to hold our faith and our hope and our trust in you, knowing that you are a good father that longs to take care of his children. In the moments where we have doubts, in the moments where we need reassurance, I pray that you give this to us, but then you also surround us around the right people that can encourage us along the way of this Christian journey. We admit that this journey is hard sometimes. It's hard to be consistent. It's hard to stay the course. but help us to be encouraged by, the promises in the Bible, the stories in the Bible of the hardships that some of the strongest characters, or the characters that we see as strong, have gone through, but ultimately overcame with your help and with your power. So help us to lean in on that and trust you all the way. I pray for anybody's prayer requests tonight that you will speak to them accordingly. I pray that people may hear you in a new way, but then you also give us the willingness to also hear you differently and understand, and also accept that ultimately the way that you respond is what's going to be best for our interests and our life and our eternal welfare. I pray that you give us a great night, wake us up refreshed in the morning, and help us to have a blessed weekend. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you, Ms. Llewellyn, for being here. Our walk doesn't have to end here. Join us on the next show, third Friday in June. Whoa. Before you go, make sure you like us on all social media platforms at The Walk Live, and find us on any of your favorite podcast platforms. Our journey doesn't have to end here. Join us on the next walk.